Welcome back, guys. We have made it to the turn. The fourth card is getting dealt. So what are we going to talk about today? We have we looked at the big picture so far, right? We looked at flop strategy. We looked at pre-flop. So now we are going to talk about hand reading. If we want to talk in poker lingo, we're going to be putting someone on a range. Obviously, we are doing this on the previous streets, but on the turn, this is where it becomes really important to narrow down what we think our opponent likely has, all right? And the 2 rounds of betting that happened before are going to help us range them, because every decision we make tends to reveal some information about our holdings, right? And we're really paying close attention to all of the actions that not everything in a range is going to take. Best way to demonstrate that is to just hop right into an example, all right? Now, when we are dealt into a hand, we can have absolutely any 2 cards, right? And we know that our decision to enter the pot is already going to narrow this range down, all right? It's an action that eliminates some of the combos. So say that we are in the cutoff. It folds to us, and we go ahead and we open a range that looks similar to that. Fairly reasonable. Let's say button folds, small blind folds, and then there's a reasonable player in the big blind, so he goes ahead and defends with a range that looks like this. All right. Obviously, fish are going to be wider, so when you guys are doing your own off-table work, you can play around with wider ranges for sure. I encourage you to do so, just so you kind of get an idea of how often fish whiff. Yeah, that's why they're so much fun to play against. But moving forward, let's pretend we're against a reg who's going to be going off of charts like us. They defend with that range, so we've already done some range narrowing, and then we are off to see a flop. Now, let me raise this up a little bit, guys. I'm going to hit random, which is going to give us a random flop. All right. And yeah, it looks like we got a 10 high monotone flop. If we look at equities, looks like we have a range advantage with a little over 55.5%. If we check our equity graph, it looks like maybe in like the nutted hands, we're kind of tied. But I would say overall, we probably have a slight nut advantage. We definitely have a range advantage. Let's see what happens here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this might be a board that I just fire a small 1/3 pot size c-bet with all of my range, all right? And if I'm doing that with all of my range, that means that that is an action that cannot narrow this down, right? So range bet implies that I have everything, all right? But if we go back over to big blind's range and how they defend to the c-bet, we're going to see that that will reveal some things about their holdings for sure. All right. Now, this is where the work comes in, and I'm kind of just going to narrate my own thought process, how I would be ranging someone if I made a c-bet and they called. All right. What are they going to be calling with? That's going to narrow their range down. All right. Now, they're nutted hands. They're straights, which they have none of here. I don't think anyone can have a straight here. They're sets. They're 2 pairs. I think those might check raise, and I'm just going to assume that those hands check raise all the time because that's what they're incentivized to do. They are not going to have any of those hands in their range. Matter of fact here, let me pull this up so you guys can see the whole screen. Right now there is nothing going through my filters, and I'm just going to be ticking off hands that I think just flat are c-bet. Hands that do not raise, hands that do not fold, all right? I have a feeling their top pair is going to be calling, I have a feeling all of their pairs are going to be calling, actually. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit those filters for me. Now, flush draws. I think their flush draws sometimes might check raise, sometimes might call. All right. So if you are doing this kind of exercise, and let's say you were just working with a normal equity calculator that doesn't help you filter out as much, just maybe only include like half of the actual combos, what you're going to see me do is just set this at 50%, and I'm just going to assume all of their combos check raise half the time. Now we could get into it a little bit more in depth, and maybe we assume that their nut flush draws check raise at a higher frequency, so I can go ahead and punch in a lower percentage that'll call. But just so we kind of get through this example, this is sort of the off-table work that you want to be doing as your range people. All right. So now we got half of their flush draws in range. Their open-enders, I feel like they are definitely going to continue with, but obviously on this board they don't have any because the board doesn't allow for it. They do have some gut shots that I have a feeling are going to be calling. If it's a small bet, they might be even calling with some overcards and flush draw plus pair. All their other flush draws, like their combo draws, I think are also going to continue. So I'm going to put those into the filter as well. And yeah, so now we narrowed down their range from everything that they had to just what they are going to be calling with. All right. So that means that when we get to the turn, let me lock the flop, put a random turn card in. We know that this is the range we are dealing with, so that I guess we are better prepared to start making our decisions. Why is this important? Well, look, if we bet our entire range and they are calling with just some of their range, that means that they are going to get to the turn a little bit stronger than us, right? And as you can see on this turn, their equity didn't really drop all that much. That's because they already let go of some of their worst hands. But it's a process like this that you want to do to help you understand how people are getting two turns. The more you do this off table with your software, the easier it'll be for you to gauge people's hand strengths when you're like actually on the felt. All right. So let me just go through another example. Let's clear the board out. All right. Let's say we are dealing with the same exact ranges. Let's get another random flop going in there. We got our Jack 5-4. Let's take filters off of everything in case they're already on there. Now we can look at our equity graph, right? So looks like we're kind of close to the nuts, definitely have a range advantage. Say that we bet range and we want to know what our opponent is going to be calling with. We go through the same exact process, all right? Assume that their two pair and better is going to check raise, and then just see what they continue with. Here there aren't any flush draws, but it looks like they might have some open enders. They're definitely calling with like all their gutters and stuff. So on the open enders, maybe some of them check raise some of the time. So again, I'm just gonna set my frequencies to 50% because some of these are gonna be getting check raised. Maybe some of their gut shots check raise as well, perhaps not so often. But we can go ahead and lower the frequencies just the same, just to give us an idea of what they're getting to the turn with. All right. Oop, that gave us a whole different flop because I forgot to lock it here. But nevertheless, this is kind of like the thought process. that you want to be applying when you're doing your off-table work so that you get a better understanding of what ranges you're dealing with on the flop. All right. Let's give us another random flop. Ace 6-4, great, why not? Let's assume that we c-bet everything on this ace-high board and we get check raised, right? Well, what is this person going to be check raising? Let's go back over to big blinds range. Let's clear the filters and build a range that we think will check raise. So obviously 2-pair and better is going to be check raising. And let's see, are there any good draws available? Looks like they have some open enders available. Let's say they check raise those at a certain frequency. There we go. We got those filters in for what gets check raised. It is reflected in the equities that we see. And then if we go over to our range, let's filter out what we think we're going to call their check raise with. So let's say top pair or better. Also maybe an open ender. Maybe you want to say middle pair or better in case you think they're messing around, but you can always hit your filter and see how that range does. Looks like if we leave our middle pairs in, our range still is looking pretty weak equity-wise. We might even have to start folding out some of our top pairs, looks like. Maybe even ones with weak equity. Like our worst kickers we're going to get rid of. Hey, and look at that. Our equity shot up. But anyway, this is what I mean by hand reading. So let's lock this flop in. Let's put a random turn out there, right? And now we can see how our equities shift once we get to a turn with more realistic ranges. So hopefully you got something out of this exercise. Essentially what you're doing is trying to look at the decision that someone makes and seeing how logically that would affect the range that you are up against. So this is the exact type of exercise that will separate you from everybody who's not putting their off the felt work in, which means that it's this kind of stuff that is going to boost your win rate over the competition. So thanks for watching, guys. We will catch you in the next one.
Download it for free at Jurojinpoker.com.